Ой, голос пошел в наушники. Извините.
Right. Good afternoon.
Добрый день.
I'm going to be picking up
Я
quite a number
собираюсь
of the themes
подхватить
that
целый
you've
ряд
been discussing,
вопросов, которые
but
вы
in
только
terms
что
of a
затронули,
real
но в
hard
отношении
case study.
действительно
You're
реальных,
the first people to
твердых,
get the inside
конкретных
story
примеров.
of what we have been
Вы
doing over the
серьезно
past 12
находитесь
months
внутри
with
того, что вы
the strongest
обсуждаете и
in the country.
занимаетесь в течение почти 12
And it
месяцев.
is real transformation.
Действительно реальная трансформация.
I'll start off by introducing myself. I called myself one before. An architect. Someone has got to design how change happens. It is not just managing its delivery. So the issue
Вопрос не только состоит в управлении изменениями, не только процесс.
between failure, of which so many big transformations end up in, and a real achievement. So I'm from the UK. I had the job on behalf of Her Majesty's government to guide the process of establishing our Ministry of Justice. We were late in the day getting a Ministry of Justice. That was in 2007. And my task was to work with very senior civil servants, the board of ministers, to make sure that they were creating a ministry that was fit for this purpose. In practice, it was quite different to your own ministry. It included responsibility for prisons and probation, about 100,000 employees, and it was an interesting place to see where things don't work when it comes to working with public civil servants. There'll be more of that in a moment. The last 3 years I've been working in the West Bank in Palestine on rule of law issues and change and transformation. I have to say it's a very different environment to anything else I've been in. It's in one extent it's stable. It's not like a Syria. It's not full of constant violence. But on the other, it is a place of complete conflict. So in the UK, the block on people taking change was scared of risk, just wanting risk averse, not wanting things to change. And here, the block was a sense of conflict and aggression and not being in control of their own environment and circumstances. I'll come on to what I found in Kazakhstan. Final bit is that for about 12 years I've been researching and examining all the literature that I can find that's about change leadership. And actually there isn't that much. There is about CEO leaders, and there is about increasingly, but still not a lot, change management. Change leadership is sparse. And change leadership is about improving circumstances, society, prospects, the environment. That's change leadership. It's rooted in a passion for things to be better. So, briefly about my own organisation called EUCJ. It's basically EU funded. It's a 3-year project, and we're into our last year just. And it is to support reforms in the criminal justice system, wherever they might be. We have to promote the EU because it's EU taxpayers paying for it. And so we have this tension between working behind the scenes in very powerful, important and sensitive areas and having actually to be showcasing what we do. We have stakeholders across the criminal justice system, the Supreme Court, the Bar Association, Academy for Justice, Law Enforcement Agency, the Minister of Interior, as well as the General Prosecutor. So we work right across. But it's with the General Prosecutor where we've done the most in-depth and mold-breaking work. Briefly, about GPO. 8,400 employees, of whom 5,000-ish are prosecutors, obviously spread right across the land, with a tradition of being all things to all people, not actually able to say what they don't do. And so our initial discussions with them, when they were asking help to form a strategy, it was clear they didn't have a sense of identity and unity. So we immediately got into a kind of cultural issue, and culture is where I've concentrated my time. And there's common definitions of culture. And the ones underlined, I think, change programs can change. Some of them are more difficult. We have a situation where these 5 components can actually be seen as just two aspects of culture, and this to me is quite important because culture is at the heart of sustainable change. If you don't change the culture, you just change the structure, you change the names, you change the skills, you do not change the organization. So the first 3 represent meanings, cultural meanings. So I like simplicity. So what do things mean in an organization? And the last 2 is how do people behave? What is the behavior of the system? And there are things that we can change, but this is written as you get from a textbook, talking really about culture in a community setting. So the next slide tries to say what is culture in an institutional setting. And this is, I call, systemic change. So not changing bits and pieces, we're changing everything, absolutely everything. And that's what we were asked to do by the General Prosecutor, to change the GPO right the way through. So what you have is themes that I put as the why, how, who, what, each of which has an institutional aspect to it. And in the institution, big institutions are command and control, quite largely. They tend towards conforming. They have lots of institutional traditions and norms of behaviour. There's management is very much first and foremost looking at compliance, making sure things are being delivered. It's always hierarchical to an extent, and so on. If you want to change, you've got to work outside that system. You've got to create something that means that there is leadership, creativity, innovation, there's team working, that people are evidencing where they want to go. You can't do it in the system because the system's too big, too rigid, too slow. And I'm talking about a program that only took, well, I'm only 1 year into it, and I will be able to describe what's achieved in that time. We dealt with the uniform. It's military. It's Soviet. It hasn't moved anywhere. And so the culture is one that most people said you'll never change them. Never change them. But they're lovely people behind all that. You've no idea. Once you actually start to break in, this is a power culture. And some people are there for the power to help people, and some people are the power to actually regulate every aspect of society. And so but it's all about power. And so that's a really hard culture to work with, and hard area to actually see change, but not impossible. When I first arrived and I saw these standard approaches, I thought, this is hopeless. There's always big tables, big screens. I think this one will actually play a little bit if you go down here. Just a bit. No. Yeah. I mean, isn't it terrible? It's just absolutely terrible. So, you can see who's in charge. Next. Okay, just go again. Right. The saving grace is the GP, Mr. Azanov. He came in as a reformist about 18 months ago, and he is the top leader, he is the GP, and he is the man who's going to make it all happen, and he's determined, but he doesn't know how. Why should he or anyone else? Because for 25 years they've been in existence and they've never had any big changes. They've had law changes. There've been shifts in titles and responsibilities, but not big changes. So the first thing he did, which was before I arrived, was the best of the best. So these are people coming in as students, as the entry point for prosecutors, and he created a situation where it wasn't who your relatives were, it wasn't who you know, it wasn't loyalties, it's merit that got you a job. And that was his starting point. And he promoted a big competition. They had about 1,800 applicants for 60 jobs. Now that was the beginning of cultural change. It was a big signal to people. And so he'd started on this path. He also created projects. At this stage, even in January this year, there were still 42 projects. Some of them huge. I'll have to put my glasses on just to read them, but they're fascinating. How fines are used. One project. Another one is it's called that e-fines. Justice, the main criteria for legal protection. Stolen asset recovery. Improvement of criminal fines, regional hub on countering global threats. Recovery of alimony payments. Families without violence. I mean, honestly, it's just everything. It's just absolutely everything. And he realized he got a problem and said, can you help us with our strategy? And he got a problem because he had no project management skills in the organization. He had no way of tracking what was going on. And it was, a colleague calls it, the force of nature. Things were happening anywhere, everywhere, and it was not going to progress the GPO. So, where do we go from here? We created a board, a change board. We said no uniforms, no status differences, no tables, person to person. You're all equal. Every idea has to be listened to. Now discuss. And of course they were very silent to start off with, just looking at each other. And instead of the hierarchy, it is what we call the wisdom of the group. They know what needs to change. They know where their problems are. They don't necessarily know how. And that's where the likes of you and me come in. So we generated discussion. We generated their leadership on thinking through how are they going to get to a better place. And they really enjoyed it. It wasn't long before actually you could feel that the mindset was changing, the expectation and assumptions about what could be done was changing, and they are in charge of their own destiny. Now this, compared with the uniformed bunch sat in rows, was a great step forward, but we had to keep it going. The discussions, the productivity, the quick wins, the sense that this change is happening, it can work. And that's quite a lot to expect of people. So what we did was we created a system, and a system that is about how you cascade leadership, how you control the whole program, a board, not an individual, a board chaired by the GP, and he turned up to board meetings were twice a week. He turned up to nearly all of them at the end, not wanting to dominate. Obviously project management office, and what we eventually called change agents, people, this has been referred to a little time ago, people who stir up employee engagement, people who know how to facilitate and are trained to facilitate discussions to positive conclusions, to give people voices, and to deal with the dissenters. But in turn, they produce leaders of initiatives. They don't do it all themselves. But our starting point was to get that in place and trained, that in place and trained, and that in place and trained. And for people to be happy. And they were happy. They loved it. Because we gave status to those who got involved. It was on top of their day job. So they had to be enthusiastic. And that enthusiasm and positiveness had to rub off. No, let's go back to it. 8,400 employees spread across this enormous country. So how do we do that? We have to have lots of him and hers. And here they are, the first wave. They've been recruited. We did a selection process. That's the GP. He turns up to everything. He leads by example. Going back to some of the leadership issues, he's a category 4. Really, really excellent, very inspiring, etc. And people feel very encouraged by his approach to change. Not a uniform in sight. Even he didn't wear a tie. I can't get rid of my uniform. I find it too difficult. And these people, you can see the pride in their faces, can't you? And they were the ones to take the message out. So every oblast was represented by 2 people, every department, every nook and cranny of the organisation. And unfortunately, there aren't many women. That's the case right across the piece for General Prosecutor Service. We made them work with each other, not with us. We set them challenges, and they could then change the agenda as they got more confident about what was important to them. They felt it was important to be a change agent.
Для меня было важно, чтобы они стали агентами изменений.
The bosses would circulate.
Боссы
GP, when he came in, would sit down at a table.
Когда он приходил, он
You know how
также
everyone stands up in these
садился
places
за
when
стол, он
the boss
никогда
comes
не
in.
вставал, и они не
Not
вставали,
having
когда
that, not
босс
having that. And he
приходил.
goes and sits down. He's giving the signal all the time. This is different. We are changing things. We're changing the culture, our expectations, and I'm wanting you to innovate. I'm wanting you to find solutions. I'm wanting you to actually make this a better organization. Don't inspect the instructions. I can't say that was easy for everyone because people were still waiting for the instructions. Well, what do you want me to do? But we made progress. We went out to the regions, to the oblasts. The oblasts have all seen this now semicircle, and they've all created their own semicircles. And it used to be the straight chairs, big stage, etc. They've got the spirit of it. They're exploring it and what it means, and they are being productive. They're producing solid change initiatives, ideas to improve effectiveness, business processes, to develop better relationships with the public, and so on. Whatever was bubbling away, their areas of concern, they could choose and go for it, providing it was within regulations and laws. We were the first international organization to go into any of these oblasts. The security arrangements for us to get there were painful. Every single one of the internationals had to be scrutinized. So that, if you like, some things haven't changed. It is a powerful, secretive law enforcement operation. And, you know, I respect that. But they would say, we have never had an international organization here before. Why are we there? We are there to give them international experience, to enrich their options and understanding, and to train them in areas about how to make ideas surface and work, not to tell them the content, which has been very important for our credibility. Now, some remain a bit more formal than others. You kind of pick up the atmosphere, can't you? But bit by bit, the whole organisation is on this journey. They're all contributing. It's their change programme, and the GP is backing it. There's an upward flow of ideas that goes to the change board, where they're prioritised or clustered, and then there's a downward authorisation to go ahead and make it happen. And it's amazing short time. So the time between the very first board meeting, where they sat looking at each other with no tables in between them, thinking, what on earth do we do now, to the time that that star diagram of the system was agreed, was 3 weeks. Intensive work for mindset change and for considering options. The time between that process being agreed and the project management office being running was 3 weeks. The time between the project management office working and a strategy of simplified projects being in place was 4 weeks. It was very, very fast, and that's because basically they're accountable through the GP directly to the President. The President is not a patient man. Time is against him, and time is therefore a constant feature in their expectations. This is, I don't know, dozens of times quicker than it had ever happened in any other country I've worked in.
И, наверное, нигде так быстро эти изменения не проходили, как в Казахстане. Это казахский способ.
The box that was down here says about mobilizing everyone, really, as many as possible, to feel that they are transformation leaders, not just the special change agents, not those specially skilled as project management staff. And you can just see, like duck to water, really, they were hungry for change. I'm used to resistance. This was not the case. Certainly there were some diehards, and there were some people trying to protect their power bases, but they were a very small minority. For most people, this was the change that they never dreamt was possible. This is the project management office. And you see the semicircle. They've just taken it. And so, and the semicircle and the colours, just glorious. That's where the board meets. It's a bit more comfortable than what we were providing in the hotels. And their way of having hierarchy in it, because there's always some leftover, is that the GP sits here. So right at the pinnacle, the most senior person sits, which is absolutely fine. It's respect. And this is a very dynamic project management office, and it is visibly showing cultural change. And that again is important. So I'm dealing with some of those things that you have called intangible. But actually they are very, very powerful. It changes how people feel, think, relate and respond. It was 7 months between the board having an idea of Justice Service Centre, which brings together 7 different justice-related agencies as a one-stop shop on justice with free legal aid for the public. 7 months between having the idea and it opening. Again, it's got a completely different feel to it. It's about relaxation, it's about relating to the public in an open manner, therefore about transparency and about responsiveness. Going back to that row after row after row, this is the shift that's occurred right across the piece. So they're very proud of it, and they take people around. And tomorrow they're taking around representatives from a whole batch of embassies, plus the EU ambassador, to basically say this is what the future's all about. Now, I said whole system change. This is the whole system of General Prosecutor's Office, no doubt about it. But it's not the whole system of law enforcement. And so you immediately rub up against the next agency that is not on a road of fundamental change, who maybe doesn't care about their reputation with the public, who maybe doesn't want to take on any more soft skills and work. And of course, I'm talking about the police. However, seeing is believing. And this is now snowballing, and elsewhere in this building is a group of top police who we're working with now on police reforms, very early stages, and they come here to see how the private sector does project management. They are enthusiastic, they are open, they're handpicked in order that they are the enthusiastic ones. But you've got to start in that cascading happy people rather than the die-hard cynics. And so we're hopeful, and we've also been asked by the Ministry of Interior to look at the same thing for the people who run prisons. Unfortunately, we're running out of time. We've only got 10 months left. But it's so hopeful And it also relates to a report or a strategy document that was published last week, the President's Strategic Development Plan until 2025. It lays out that this system, we're the first ones to do it, GP are the first ones to go through it, should happen in every public service, every government department. Exactly this formula, where you're engaging, you're motivating, you're opening up, and you're creating a situation of constant development, evolution, change, modernization. So, folks, there's big business in the public sector coming up, as your work in the private sector. There's going to be a complete shortage of people to do this work because it's going to be pretty enormous, and again, President wants it done quickly. So that's a quick canter through. Happiness, enthusiasm, motivation, determination. That's what keeps the momentum going, not deadlines, not actually KPIs. I know these things have to exist, but what actually makes difficult journeys possible is the passion and commitment of the individuals. Final point, is this sustainable? If the leader changes from the remarkable Mr. Azanov, and it's an old guard person who surfaces to take over, and I'm asked this all the time, and I'm listing here the kind of qualities that you want to be sustained. And my experience is that institutions, going back to that slide about institutions, institutions are really reluctant to change. You can change people. But here the institution's shifted. It's made a shift, quite a big shift. You change the people at the top, can they shift it all back? And the answer is the institution, just as it's difficult to get going in progress, it's very difficult to get going backwards. It will go backwards a bit. It will fade. It will decay, but it won't jump back to being what it was. And so I'm hopeful that it's like when you write a draft of a paper and then someone else edits it. You never lose everything that you put in. It's quite influential to actually have shaped a first draft, even if some people come in wanting to really knock back some of your ideas. So I think that we have a change here. We have for law enforcement, and we're going to have for the public sector, and we need your help. Thank you.
И вам нужны эти перемены. Большое спасибо. Микрофон, пожалуйста, просеет.
Я бы хотела задать вопрос по поводу методологии. Which kind of methodology of change management do you use? I heard about the model of the quarter, if I'm not mistaken. Can you answer for this?
I've created my own methodology because nearly all methodologies are focused on the private sector, not the public sector.
So this is your own the quarter step.
There are many similarities, but the big issue is, for me, the change in the public sector has got to be starting off with the responsibility of the public, because of course the private sector's responsibility to investors, which means that the way you work with people who are civil servants is different to the way you work with employees in the private sector. has got to connect people and take them with you, rather than give a push and a shove and see what they do. So that there are some differences that I feel are appropriate.
I have another question. Have you been invited by GP to lead this process?
Yes, I arrived in the country 14 months ago. This is my area of specialism, and I sat down with the GP and said, this is how we can help you. And so I work very closely with GP.
Okay, that's a personal determination rather than the real wish of organization to change, right?
I think really big change is also personal and passionate.
Okay. It's challenging.
По поводу вот господина Санов, да, мне кажется, он такой хороший пример спонсора изменений, да. Я раньше, моя первая работа, одна из была связана с государственной службой, и вот, налицо, да, такие изменения. Думаю, коллеги, я очень приятно удивлена, и очень приятно вот это видеть изменения. Мы не первый раз. Хотелось бы, чтобы чаще об этом коммуницировали, потому что, видишь, что действительно это на практике работает, и очень благодарны вам за то, что вы так нам помогаете в нашей стране вот именно трансформировать это мышление. Я думаю, господин Асанов — это один из тех лидеров изменений, вот, который показывает это на самом деле, что можно сделать, и действительно это возможно. Такую очень сложную структуру поменять на самом деле. Спасибо вам большое. У нас еще один вопрос. We have a few questions.
Можно все-таки о сложных вопросах или сложностях по внедрению изменений, по изменению, которые сейчас происходят в Генпрокуратуре? Потому что вы с Генпрокуратурой работаете. И как они были преодолены?
Just the logistics of getting through to so many staff over such a big geographical area is a problem. We had the pace of this program is unbelievable, and GP is very sharp and very determined. And as an example, all the people we trained to be the members of the Change Board, we invested lots of time in. He promoted them all and sent them all around the regions to be the bearers of change, and this is what it's all about. And we were left with another intake of people who didn't really understand what it was all about. But it was a wise thing to do. There's also been the issue about where the money exists for investing in change, because it doesn't tend to sit. They don't have change budgets. So you've got to be able to cross-reference to their allowed expenditure areas and say this is change. He's imaginative in those terms. Other people, leaders, may well back off from that. I think that there has been a lot of undercurrents around corruption. The issue was that there were certain ways that GPO was set up and prosecutors were able to apply their power that was readily open for corruption. And so he's taken that on with a new law that changes how prosecutors operate, At the same time, he's going through an appraisal system to try and get rid of about, well, a significant number of prosecutors who he thinks got to go. So he's got, well, it's not exactly a problem, but it is a great complexity because he's shaking the system up. And there's enough uncertainty when you embark on change anyway. And then people are worried about their jobs, they don't know what's going to happen next, and so on. So, but he's achieving it, right? It gives me headaches at night, but he's achieving it.
Yes, I have one question. I mean, you mentioned about the budget. I mean, you mentioned about budget in that you have a limited amount, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to mention that we, from another side, investing a lot in training, in change management activities for the directors, local directors, etc., etc. The question is, how do you deal with that? I mean, do you really act like a trainer yourself? Do you invite some people to make trainings? Do you train the trainer and then empower other people to go and do the same? How do you do as a system?
Very good question. Basically, we are charged with bringing in international experts who will then train the trainers once we've learnt what exactly is needed and appropriate. We help set up new curriculum so that we are leaving a legacy of capability and capacity. But our budgets were never expecting to be doing stuff like this. When this was invented as a project and the EU funding was put together, nobody believed that this is where it would be heading.
Скажите, а какова роль все-таки первого руководителя ведомства вот в реализации этих проектов?
To inspire, to communicate a really solid vision, to be clear about this is doable, not to tolerate negatives, there is no time for them, to be, just many of the things that your other presentation said, I thought that was really accurate. To lead by example, no uniform, no tie, sit at the table, all the little things. And to actually devote time, even though very, very, very busy. His time tells everything to everyone else about what is important.
So in your case, you've told us about the thing when a leader knows that the changes are needed. What about the situation when the leader, he knows that, but he doesn't do that? And how can people bring him to changes? To show him that the society of the company needs changes.
Backwards.
Yes, from the bottom to the top.
The problem with that kind of leader is they don't listen. They're not really leading. So I think the best thing is to get rid of them. Actually, they'll be reluctant to complicate their lives, and they won't create followers for anything of that nature. They are normally embedded in their current comfort zone, power base, and maybe even financial gains. the motivations that go on for people not doing change are disturbing. In the government arena, it's the president. The president has to lead. It's always the top. The very top has got to lead. If the very top doesn't lead, you've had it. Somewhere along the line, people will say why they can't do it. The president is leading magnificently, and he's raising the game all the time. So it does create this timing problem for some of us. But so in the public sector, that's good. The work of this company is leadership work. It is showing how things can and should be done and what the financial gains and benefits are if you apply yourself to it. So a reluctant leader might look and say, well, there might be something in this for me and my company. So it is actually the comparison, just like the police compared to GPO and said, we can't miss out on this. We can't continue to put our head in the sand. But it is difficult. I think the quality of leadership is very, very patchy. Really good leaders are few and far between. And leadership is about change. You don't lead people to go nowhere. And the mix between what's a manager and what's a leader is sometimes unhelpful. The managers control and comply and get things to be done as agreed. Leaders say what should be agreed, design the systems, determine the direction of travel, navigate for that journey. But somewhere along the line, I'm going to be interested to sort of hear about the future plans here. That there is bringing together what was talked about earlier, which was leadership, communication, and change. That's exactly what it is all about. But we've got to get to the top of the pile, as well as our specialist contributions.
Интересную тему. Я думаю, всем особенно интересно, как у нас трансформируется Генеральная прокуратура. Но сегодня мы больше всего с вами говорили о том, какими навыками должен обладать change manager, да, или лидер изменений. Это такое, как быть лидером, иметь хорошие коммуникативные навыки, навыки убеждения, презентационные навыки. И что немаловажно, это показывать своим личным примером, как действительно изменяться, да, чтобы наши слова и действия на самом деле совпадали. Я бы хотела на этом завершить наше второе заседание клуба профессионалов изменений. Мы будем вас радовать интересными темами. На следующее заседание мы, наверное, обсудим, какие есть типы методологии. Возможно, вот коллеги из BI-групп очень активно сегодня вовлекались. Я бы их попросила, наверное, даже выступить, как они изменяли свою культуру. Я думаю, им тоже это будет интересно поделиться с нами опытом. Вот, будем рады всех видеть. Спасибо вам огромное. Можете угощаться мандаринками, чаем, кто хочет. Да. И с наступающими праздниками, да, Игульжим Галиевна?
Я вот после выступления по Генеральной прокуратуре тоже глаза загорелись, и мне кажется, что это мое как бы предложение, чтобы фонд, может быть, Корпуниверситет взял это на какую-то заметку. Нашим SEO, нашим первым руководителям нужны очень хорошие коучи. Вот именно такие, да, которые бы немножко показали, как и что надо делать. Мы все стараемся проводить трансформацию в компаниях. Наши все первые руководители, большие профессионалы в своих направлениях, но немножко какие-то отдельные моменты нам сложно это проводить. И вот такие люди бы, да, вот рекомендуйте, пожалуйста, сверху. Мы были бы только рады программы трансформации над командой. Да, да, и именно чтобы эти люди были рядом, показали мастер-класс. Но мы же видим на примере господина Асанова, как это происходит, потому что рядом с ним, да, ну сама личность тоже, да, конечно, да. Нет, он вообще, конечно, очень продвинутый, молодец, я очень восхищаюсь этим человеком. Ну вот такая небольшая рекомендация, может быть, пожелание.
Спасибо Игульжиму Галиевне, да, на самом деле как бы вот одним из в change management, в методологии есть вот такой пункт, да, показывать пример изменений. Вот модель как раз-таки тоже в Которе, я просто ее сейчас стала изучать более подробнее, да, как раз-таки говорится о том, что нужно показывать истории успеха. Вот как раз-таки вот пример, да, очень наглядный Генеральной прокуратуры, как она трансформируется. Я со своей стороны постараюсь, да, сделать все возможное для того, чтобы организовать эту такую встречу. Если господин Билл Мейзер позволит, мы бы хотели бы тоже, да, вас пригласить еще в группе компаний фонда, представить вот ваши победы, скажем так, именно в Генеральной прокуратуре. И за ваш профессионализм спасибо большое, за то, что вы сегодня выделили время. Спасибо большое. Спасибо всем, коллеги. На этом увидим вас на 3-м заседании. Будем рады вашему отклику. Спасибо.